The search for keynote speakers takes a little bit of time. It's hard to find people who, first of all, have the strong background and are willing enough to come talk to a small group like this, right? So Leia is the CEO of InTech Solutions, the IT Princess of Power. She has authored 2 books and is a sought-after cybersecurity advisor, often asked to speak and share insights, including at Harvard, Pennsylvania State Departments, along with multiple accounting and manufacturing industry events. Leia saves mid-market firms from hackers and keeps them compliant by delivering enterprise-class IT security solutions that would otherwise be cost prohibitive. Let's have a round of applause for Leia.
Thank you, everybody. It is my pleasure to be here this morning. Well, I have to turn my mic on. There we go. Benjamin Franklin said that education as an investment always pays the best interest. Nelson Mandela said that strong education is the most powerful weapon that can change the world. W.B. Yeats said to think of education not as filling a pail, but as lighting a fire. We're here in an educational institution today. So we know that education is incredibly important. Yet, when it comes to educating our end users on security, we seem to really fail a lot. So my presentation today, what we're talking about, is sharpening a saw while dulling a knife. The fact of the matter is that if we have many layers of sophisticated, complex, and expensive tools, one end user can pierce all those levels of security by clicking one thing. If we're able to educate them and empower them, then we can decrease the possibility of this happening. So I want to thank Lucas for an excellent introduction this morning. I am the CEO of InTech Solutions, which I founded in 2006. I obviously have joined InfoGuard, and if anyone else here has not joined that organization, I highly recommend that you register. It's free, as long as you can pass a background check to get in. And if you can't pass a background check, that might be a bigger problem. And I recently, last year, authored Cyber Warfare, Securing Your Business from Total Annihilation. I do have a few copies with me today. If you are interested in a copy of my book, it's also available on Amazon. The reason why I wrote that book was to educate. Because as one person trying to speak out about something, it's very difficult to reach a lot of people. When you write a book, then like hundreds, thousands of people, millions of people are able to get that information. I wrote this book so that it's very readable and consumable for every single person in this room. It's readable and consumable for a CISO. It's readable and consumable for my 68-year-old father, who, by the way, did read this book and said, "Oh my gosh, there are so many things that I finally understand now." Thank God. So let's start by thinking about why do existing programs fail? So usually they fail because there's a poor design. So if the design is poor, then the reception is going to be poor as well. Most trainings for end users are dull and boring. People are complaining about them. The trainings don't seem very relevant. There's a lack of partnership oftentimes between human resources and IT. Sometimes end users feel like they're being tricked or belittled. Yes. Oh, okay. Oftentimes I've heard this from IT directors at one particular organization. He tried to implement a phishing simulation, and the end users complained about it, feeling like they were being tricked. And so he had to actually stop his cybersecurity program completely because of the pushback. There's oftentimes no engagement from the employees. And as we will learn, that's incredibly important in order to retain information. There's no reward, only through other consequences. And oftentimes it's not frequent enough, so it's not top of mind. In a word, we forget that we are working with humans, right? So modern humans have been around for about 40,000 years. How much of that has been during civilized time? I don't know, maybe like the last 6,000. So the majority of that time, we have a very Stone Age kind of brain, where we are looking all the time for things that, for like a tiger, right, that's going to eat us. And that's the brain that we still have today, and we have that kind of brain in a modern environment. We're not thinking about that in our approach to educating our end users. So what will effective learning look like? An instructor who's enthusiastic, clear explanation, presenting the information frequently, learning in multiple modalities, and appropriate feedback and assessment. It's important to understand adult learning and adult learners if we're going to meet them where they are. So adult learners are internally motivated and self-directed. They bring life experiences and knowledge to learning. They're goal-oriented, relevancy-oriented, and practical. And adult learners like to be respected. So think about that. Think about right now what you're doing in your environments to be able to help train end users. Are you aligning with this, or are you completely on the opposite side? When you design your program, the 4 basic things that you have to think about is the frequency that you're going to be doing some kind of training, the content, the approach you're going to take, and then assuring that all of this is backed up with documentation and policy so that it actually happens. Based on how adult learners learn the best, we recommend frequency in this way. You have an initial group style learning when you launch your program of about 30 minutes of live Q&A. Group style learning, about 15 minutes of Q&A about twice a year. Weekly reminders, like an IT tip, email to them that they can scan and read that's actually relevant. Self-paced learning options and incident response drills. And you say, wow, like, that sounds like an awful lot of continuing education doing this all the time. It really does sound like a lot. But let me tell you, when I do a presentation for an organization that we actually manage, let's say, so I can follow them and I can see what the impact of the training is. We do a live webinar. During the live webinar, I always make sure that we have time for question and answer because you want to allow people to seek clarity for what you're talking about. And you also want to listen to those questions because those questions are clues about their behavior and about the way that they're thinking about the IT and security of the organization. When I do one of those webinars, for about 6 weeks, everyone is hypersensitive, right? They're all like, oh my gosh, I clicked on this, I'm afraid. Did I get back to my computer? Or they send us samples of emails that they get out the wazoo, right? And then about 6 weeks later, they kind of get complacent. And when complacency sets in, and they get sloppy, and they think that, oh, it's not going to happen to me. And when they think that, that's when somebody gets an email, and it says, oh, I'm the CEO, and I want you to send $25,000 check to this new payer in California. And they say, okay, and they cut a check and they send it to California. In your approach, I showed you using ample storytelling. And remember that brain, that 40,000-year-old brain that we have? We didn't have writing for tens of thousands of years. So how did we learn? How did we pass on information? We told stories. We told stories around the campfire. Humans are wired to remember things through storytelling. It is the most key way for us to be able to reach our end users, is to tell stories. By telling stories, it allows an end user to be able to link themselves personally to a situation. If you just say, you have to make sure that you don't click on these bad links because you might affect your computer. That doesn't really tie anything relevant. There's nothing personal about that, except maybe they're afraid that if they click on the wrong link, that someone's going to yell at them later. And that's not helpful. But if you tell a story about what might happen, or about their friend in accounting that clicked on a link and what happened, or someone in an organization that clicked on a link and infected the network, that story then becomes more relevant to them. So what kind of stories can you tell? Tell stories from the news. Whatever, everyone sees all the highly publicized big breaches and events, retell those stories. Retell how they happened. Tell stories that happened in your region, make it local. And then tell stories that happen inside of your company. This is a good story. Bank starts running their clients. The CEO of a Michigan-based manufacturing company was logging into her online banking. And as she watched, she saw hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars sweeping out of her account. Scared and frustrated, she calls her bank. Now, the banker stops the bleeding, but not until $5.2 million are gone. Now, the bank helps her recover most of that money. But at the end of the day, there's over $500 million, $500,000, $500,000 that is not recoverable and just gone. Now, a story like that is kind of relatable, especially if you happen to be a manufacturer and you tell this story to your team. It's also relatable if you're trying to talk to a CEO who has a really, really crappy password. Anyone know any CEOs like that? Doesn't happen, right? No, it doesn't happen. They're the best. Sure. Here's a regional story. In Pittsburgh, a law firm has a disgruntled employee. The disgruntled employee actually works with Anonymous, a hacker group, to get them access to systems. She's found out. They sent her to court. She ended up just getting on probation, thank goodness. But obviously the entire organization's records were compromised by an infamous hacker organization. This happened right here in Pittsburgh, right down the street. How many times do you talk to people within the organization that say, oh, our people would never do anything. I trust our people. They're not going to do anything malicious. You never know what's on the other side of that person's life. You never know if they have pressure at home on financial issues, and somebody shows up and offers them a sweet deal. This is a good story to tell about how we have to make sure that we're mindful about who has access to our network. Are you in the office? This is a favorite story of mine to tell. So to tell everybody, this is an excellent story to tell everyone in your organization because they continue to use this social engineering strategy, even though it's been seen so many times and you're like, oh my gosh, for goodness sake, this has been happening for so long, for years, and you guys haven't gotten this yet? That's right. I love it too, because it's very simple. You know, it says, are you in the office? It's the title of the email. They open it up, it's from the CEO. Yes, I'm in the office. What do you need? Oh, I need a process of a transfer to beneficiary today. Now, the person in the office who's in accounting says, this really doesn't sound like my CEO. But you know what? He's very high stress and he does things really fast. So maybe it is him. And so she replies back, and she says, not a problem. I'll just need the PO and the information so that I can add this new vendor to our accounting systems. And he emails back, oh no, I'll send you that information later. Please cut the check. She pushes back because they have a written process that requires this PO and this process to be able to process the check. She pushes back, but I really need to do this. This is our process. And the guy says, go ahead and send the payment. I'll forward the invoice later. Now the woman is afraid for her job because she's pushing back against the CEO. So she cuts the check and she sends the check. And later she finds out that this was a hacker and that they sent the check to a false address. Now, we're lucky in this case that it was a check, so he wasn't too bright. If he was really bright, he would have asked for a wire or an ACH, because that would have been more difficult to retrieve. In this case, they just stopped the check. But oftentimes they ask for wires or an ACH. Once you wire something, that money's gone. You cannot get it back. It's not covered by FDIC. Your bank does not have to retrieve it for you. You're SOL. Stories like this help accounting understand how they have to be vigilant. So deliver also the content in the form of webinars and seminars. You want to make sure that you're interactive and have that ability to get feedback from your end users. Educate them on what your security stack is. I hear a lot of end users complain about the security of the network. I don't understand why this is blocked, why I can't install this, I need admin rights. I mean, how many times are we hearing things like that? If you educate them up front, it actually changes this completely. It puts them on the side of understanding that they are part of the security staff. They are part of the front line of defense. So I was actually talking to another CEO the other day, and he said that he couldn't understand sometimes his employees because sometimes you do something good for them and it ends up they find a bad thing in it. And you know what he did? He bought a whole bunch of company cars for his technicians and put the people in the company cars. And that way they could drive around the company cars all the time. They wouldn't have to put miles on their own vehicles. They wouldn't have to wear and tear on their own vehicles. The gas was paid by the company. He was like, this is going to be a great benefit. And then they found out, and then the employees found out that they were actually going to have a small tax on their payroll that was considered a fringe benefit. Now everyone's ticked off about the company cars, right? You got a freaking car! But you're upset that you have a tiny little bit taken out of your paycheck. What was the difference? The difference was in the delivery and the ownership, right? If they said up front, hey, we're thinking about doing this thing with the cars, but if we do it, and you're going to have a little bit taken out of your paycheck, should we do it? Then they have ownership. They say, yes, we should definitely do it. Think about that, too, in the education. If you involve them in either in decision-making or the understanding of why products were selected, why things are configured a certain way, it empowers them to feel like they're part of the process instead of at odds with it. Once they're at odds with it, they're going to try to find any way to go over, around, and through what you've put in place. Totally not caring and having no regard for the importance of these things. Also educate them on how hackers gain foothold in the network. That's really important. I mean, let them know too that oftentimes, there's foothold established in the network for, I think the average right now is about 200 days before anything is discovered. That's enough to scare people, I think. Consider adding a service. You don't have to create all this content all by yourself. You can either get somebody to come in and help you to create the content, or you can subscribe to one of these services up here that can provide things for you, like customized phishing attacks, smishing, a USB drop. I love that. That's so much fun, actually. When you do a USB drop and see whether it's inside of your facility or outside of your facility, and see who picks it up and takes it inside and plugs it into their computer. That one's fun. And it's a really excellent learning environment, learning tool, because you have something that happened in a safe environment. Content examples. So this is an example of helping people understand what their antivirus is on their computer. Did you know that about 30% of end users actually don't know what antivirus we put on their computers? They don't know. They know there's antivirus there, but they don't know what it is. They don't know what it looks like. They don't know what it's called. To be able to say, this is what the icon looks like in the system tray. This is what it looks like when it pops up. If something pops up and it doesn't look like this, you need to call us right away. This is the wrong thing. Explain things about the web filter. What does it do? Why is it important? Why is it configured the way it is? And darn it, why is it blocking me from some legitimate sites that I have to go to? This is just some examples of some phishing, online kind of self-paced interactive phishing examples you can have for users. And make sure that you're doing some kind of incident response drills. Test your incident response plan before you actually have an incident. Because I know everybody in the room has a written incident response plan, right? Sure you do. You want to make sure you do that before the actual incident, because a lot of us walk around actually in the back of our minds thinking that an incident's not going to happen. We're actually kidding ourselves. We're doing that. We hold that belief deep down inside of our souls. That's why we're not testing this. Because if we really thought it was going to happen, we would test our response plans. So you want to drill on things like, what happens if we have a ransomware attack? You would drill. What happens if we have an email compromise suddenly email is being sent out to thousands of pieces of mail, email's been compromised, or we have a hacker inside of someone's emails and they're getting the bank to wire money all over the place. That happens a lot. So that's the recovery drills, and consider a red team exercise. You say, I'm a lone IT director. I can't do a red team exercise. It's just me. Or you say, I'm a small IT department. There's only 4 of us. We can't do this. We don't have the resources for it. It doesn't have to be super sophisticated, guys. It really doesn't have to be super sophisticated. It can be as simple as having someone trying to access your environment physically, or try to plug a USB device into some computer. Somebody who doesn't work there, or somebody maybe that does work there. What I routinely do when I go visit a client is I'll arrive early, about 20 to 15 minutes early, and then unannounced, I'll walk in, I'll try to get past reception, and try to walk into the server and see if I can get there, undetected. Do you know how often I'm successful? A lot. Even though we were supposed to have the physical security where the server room is locked and all these things, I can still, I'm like, oh, sucker's open. Come on, let's go and stand in the server room for a little bit, hang out, All right. Undetected, and then I have a meeting with the client and we talk about some of those things. So you can make it pretty simple. It doesn't have to be super complex. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You certainly can, but you don't have to. Because sometimes the easiest way is to get access in the simplest ways. This is a cute content example of some phishing attacks here. The simulated phishing where they click on this link and then they get rickrolled. I just thought that was kind of funny, so I like to throw that in there. I don't know, and users might not think it's as funny as we do, but also sharing incidents within the company is very important. So oftentimes I see, and actually I have yet to see documentation, papers written about when you do any kind of incident response planning drills, or when you find that something has happened, actually sharing it across the company. Now I understand you do a red team exercise and you find all of these, holes or gaps in the configuration of things, and that's how hackers are getting in or could get in. I understand. You don't want to share that with end users. That's not going to be helpful. But when there are incidents that are either preventable by an end user, like clicking on something, not clicking on something, having an insecure password, or anything like that, that has an end user component with it, it should be shared throughout the organization. Now I come to the idea of having written documentation and policies. We all love policies, don't we? They're the funnest things to write. We like them even better than we like documenting all the work we've done in IT, right? So what policies do for you is very important because it reinforces the philosophy of security across the organization. Now it's in writing, we're not just talking about it. The entire organization has agreed at the highest levels. This is our philosophy in our approach to security. That outlines clearly who is responsible for security throughout the entire organization. And we all know that everyone at every level is responsible for security of IT in the organization. Even if you don't have a computer, you're still responsible for physical security. It also drives monetary decisions. When you have things in writing about how your security environment has to be, what kind of protocols you have to have in place, you have justification for budgets and to be able to spend that money. It also outlines the actions you take when you get breached. And it delineates responsibility for where security lies. So these are 10 policies that every single company should have. If you don't have one of those, jot it down, and you can go to the SANS Institute and download free boilerplates so you don't have to come up with something from scratch. And it's not enough to just have the policies. You have to make sure that they're assigned by responsible parties, like who is supposed to be responsible for reviewing this, and then within that, within the policy, it should explain the different areas of your InfoSec or InfoSense policies, who's responsible, who's accountable, who you report to about particular items in there. It should be reviewed at least yearly in larger organizations, perhaps quarterly, because the company changes so much quicker. And you want to update it at any time, that there's a threat to the environment, and applications change, business processes change, any of those things, to make sure that the policy is still relevant. Log all changes in the back of the policy, and then assure that the policy is taught and reviewed. Obviously, it's not just enough to have a policy, so you have to educate people to help them understand that this is the policy of the organization. It's an excellent way to be able to back up what you're doing in your environment. When an end user calls and they're upset about something, you can easily reference a policy and say, we are only following our information security policy. We're only enforcing our password policy. So we agreed upon as an organization for us to remain secure. This is our password policy. Internal partnerships are really hugely important. IT can't be an island. IT has to have a strong partnership with both HR and management. Because if you have all kinds of awesome ideas, and they're not communicated and backed up by management, you're going to be basically like an echo chamber that's listening to yourself. At the same time, there has to be a really strong partnership with HR, so that as people come on board, that they are educated properly about the policies of the network. Because you know what? It's oftentimes those new end users that come in, the new employees, that don't understand your security stack, your philosophy in education, any of those things that makes them feel like they don't realize that they're making a mistake. Most of the companies that we work with have IT security as part of their onboarding process. They have a video they have to watch and say, this is our security stack, these are our policies on where you store data, this is our policy on who you're allowed to share it with, right on the onboarding process. So real quick, here's some ways to kill your program real fast. Set it and forget it. Oh, I bought Nova before and I turned it off. We're good. That's really bad. strategy. To only use online trading and videos and check it off. Because it sounds really easy. I'm like, there we go, I got a cybersecurity program. To get irritated when employees try to submit samples to you, you know? Like they submit an email that you're like, oh my gosh, this is really, really clear that this is a phishing message. And they're like, is this legit? You're like, okay, just maybe do that for a second if you really need to, but then, you know, praise them. Oh, thank you so much. That was so vigilant of you to send me that sample. You're right. This is a phishing email. You know, keep it up. And take the approach that, you know, our end users do, they're not going to get it. Why am I wasting my time? That's not going to be helpful to anyone in the organization. We're all on the same team, right? It's not IT against the end users. We're all on the same side of the table. It's the bad guys that we're against. Do make sure that you have a written plan for your cybersecurity awareness program. You don't know how many people I talk to, they're like, yeah, we have a cybersecurity awareness program. I have to know before what are those other services. We do some pen testing once a year, I do a couple scans, and I send out email once in a while, and my end users know when there's like a new thing out there to be aware of. That's not really a plan. That's totally off the cuff, shooting from the hip kind of thing. We don't want to do that. We want a written plan so that anyone else can come behind you and still implement this. It's clear and it has scheduled times that you're doing different things. Be interactive and engaging. And trust me, you can be. If you're excited about this stuff, that's how we're getting this. Offer praise to your end users for engaging in training. Consider some gamification. Always answer questions and concerns people have, even if they might sound like a stupid question, and even if they raise their hand. I have a stupid question. No, there's no stupid question. Every question is actually valid. Like I said earlier, they're all clues. You know, when I do some of these presentations and people ask things, they're like, well, you know, I heard you say that we're supposed to be saving all of our documents in OneDrive, but I've been using Dropbox. Should I stop doing that? Yeah, great. We're going to have a conversation offline about that, but yes, you should stop doing that. And that was that's excellent, right? So if you create that safe space for them to be able to say those things, and you can identify where you might have shadow IT leaking data outside of the organization. So that's why you make sure that you're taking all kinds of notes on that. So now, you're all empowered to go and educate end users that instead of piercing through security, that they can be on the side of the table as you to secure networks. Have an awesome conference, guys.
That's good.